chapter 6. Okay. These are the commands, Deuteronomy chapter 6, I begin verse 1. I'm reading from NIV. These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Yeah, thank you. God bless.
Amen. Bwana asifiwe. It's true, the details will differ, but the assignment is given by God. From that passage, Deuteronomy chapter 6, there are three things every parent is asked to do. Number one is to understand that your child is not your child. It's God's child. That's why the owner is the one telling you how to deal with his child. That's the first thing you must understand. One of the books that I've given is called A Leader as a Steward. Maybe I should have said a parent as a steward. Because you need to understand, a steward is a person who manages another person's property. So therefore, when a parent is a steward, the first realization is, this is not my child. This is God's child allocated to me. I'm on duty to serve the Lord. And that's the first thing of all the things we say, that's the first thing you need to understand. That you are only a parent. I keep making a joke. I don't know why the place where babies are called a delivery room. It's just you call it a delivery room. It's about 40 years ago since we had a child. But I think the place is still called delivery. It's still called delivery room. Yes. I keep asking, why is it called a delivery room? Maybe it's to remind the mother that she is not the owner of the baby. She only delivered. It's very important. It's very important to understand that she was used by God as the delivery system. Yes. To deliver God's child. It's not your child, it's God's child, but he needed a delivery system, and you are the delivery system. To me, that's a very, very important point. And when I realized it changed my parenting. To realize this is not my child. Because even my child, I can do whatever I want with my child, isn't it? In fact, if you find somebody beating up their child, you say, hey, why are you beating them? This is my child. I can do with my child whatever I want. But if you are born again, you know you are lying. Because that's not your child. You cannot do with your child whatever you want, because you are a steward of somebody else's property. Let's assume you have a kachamba, you have a small land somewhere, okay, a big one, somewhere in Kitale, and you have left a guy there to look after it. You leave him looking after cows, then his cows are not giving good money. He sells all of them and buys pigs. Only for you to go to find pigs on your land. This, whose land is it? This is mine. It's your land. Then what are these I'm seeing? Oh, I thought that cows are not bringing us money. Would that guy continue with that land? He'll be fired with immediate effect. Because whether pigs are better than cows is none of his business. I left you to look after cows. Similarly, If you don't hear anything else this afternoon, remember Deuteronomy chapter 6. God is giving instructions for you on how to treat his child. Yes. Because you do not own that child. Therefore, you cannot do with the child whatever you will. Number 2, I get from that one, is to realize that a parent is not like a good Samaritan. He's like an innkeeper. You know the story of the Good Samaritan? The Good Samaritan is the guy who came, found somebody in pain and bloody, took that guy, took him to an inn, told the innkeeper, look after this guy. Whatever it costs you, don't worry. On my way back, you can charge me all the bills. Now, Good Samaritan must be a very rich man. Because he's not giving limits. It's not like a medical cover. You know, medical cover have limits. Now, this one was told, do anything and everything for this man and don't charge him anything. Just simply wait until I come and I'll pay everything. Now, if you as a parent were to be a good Samaritan, that's impossible. But now you know very well, you are not a good Samaritan. You are an innkeeper. Look after this child, whatever it costs you, don't ask a child. I will pay for it. And as a steward, you then understand, you do not bring up your child to get any return. So you are going to charge the innkeeper. Rather, it's a good Samaritan. You look after the child without bothering, you know, especially now for those of us with adult children. Say, but surely I put so much effort. What am I getting out of it? That's an irrelevant question. Because you are not the owner. You are not expected to get any returns on your child. It's not an investment. So that's duty. And the owner has promised they will pay you. Even if your child doesn't give you anything, it doesn't matter. The one who gave you the duty to look after your child. And you know, the moment you start realizing that, it changes. When I was growing up, my father died. My grandfather was alive and he had cows and everything. And when I would be sent away for school fees in high school, 1960s, we have no money. I'm there. Even a money to go and tell the Mzungu. Those days, most of the schools, our teachers were Zungus. That money will come. My guy will say, you stay there. Me, I can't pay a single thing. Look at me. Do you think I'll be alive by the time you finish school? So I never asked my grandfather for anything because he was clear I cannot be a good investment. And he was right because my grandfather was circumcised, we used to say 1900. You know, that means 1900. That means he was an adult by the time that the other century was ending. So, by the time I'm getting born, 1952, he's already an old man, over 70. By the time I'm born, he's over 70. And he used to ask me, have you heard of anybody of my age group who is still alive? So clearly, in his own mind, he cannot do anything for me because by the time I'm an adult, he'll get nothing. Do you know something? Things of God. The guy lived to be over 100. So I finished university and I started buying him things, but I never reminded him, you had to say it. Am I communicating? So similarly, if you're a Christian parent, understand God created you, God is the one in charge of you, and God will provide for you until you die. Yes. Your children are not your pension plan. Yes. Are we together? God will look after you. So do not start thinking, I do this. And that's why you even interfere with their careers, because you think that career cannot look after my retirement. Now, you are God's business. He'll look after you until you die. And will provide. That's his promise. Yes. If your children provide for you, it's not because you are waiting on them. You are waiting on God. And God can use your children. And if they don't want, God can use somebody else. Am I right? Yes. So, but provide, he will. So the second thing I want you to understand is, The reason you are going to parent children is not so that you get a return on investment. It's so that you honor God who has given you the responsibility. Are we together? Because you know He will be happy with you. Part of the ministries we do is a ministry of bringing up children. And when you do it well, He will say, like in Matthew 35, well done, good and faithful servant. I left you with 3 children, and you have done well. Enter into your master's rest. So you need to understand that. But the other thing I'm understanding from this passage is that because you're a steward, there will be a report card. And that report card will not be your parents because they themselves will have died. If they are not already dead. It will be God Himself assessing whether the way He treated that child was right or wrong. For example, if you don't breastfeed your child, the baby doesn't even know the language. They don't complain with it. But one day you answer to God why He gave you milk and you stole it. And so your child had to take the cow's milk. Because you had refused. You had refused with the babies. So you went to work with the baby's milk. Or it's a just baby's milk. How come you are an adult woman and you never had gotten the milk until the baby came? It's for God to tell you this is not your milk. This is the baby's milk. My baby. Not your baby, but God's. And now you are a thief. You have run away to work with the baby's milk. The baby cannot complain. But one day you have to answer the question. I gave you a baby and I gave you milk for the baby, but you are a thief. You went away with my baby's milk. That's what you're talking about. That's parenting. It has nothing to do with the baby. The baby may never take you to court, may never ask you anything. But the owner of the baby one day will ask you a question. And that will be something very, very, very important. The first thing I want you to understand is you are called a father or a parent only because God has delegated to you. You are delegatee. The real father, like my wife mentioned, is God. He has delegated to you. So you are the conveyor of God's parenthood to that child. But it's God's child. Maybe He can also tell you you are God's example to the child, the role model. And my understanding is the child has several needs. Those needs, even the baby Jesus had them. Can somebody read for me Luke chapter 2, verse 52? Just see the needs that the child of God allocated to you needs, as per Luke chapter 2, verse 52. Maybe Pastor, you can, since you are the one with the mic, you can read. Or the mic disappeared. Okay. So we just hear what are the needs God expects you to help the child to meet.
And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and the man.
Those are 4 different needs Jesus had and God provided through Mary and Joseph. Number 1, the baby grew in stature. That is called physical development. So it is the responsibility of a parent to help the child to grow physically. So you cannot say you are parenting and you are not helping the baby well. How do the baby grow physically? I guess it depends on the feeding. Am I right? So for your child to lack food, when I say food, I mean a balanced diet. Doesn't mean rich food, just means, according to biologists, a balanced diet. It has starch, it has vitamin. What was that thing? Protein. So for your baby not to eat a balanced diet, one day you may have to give an answer to God. Your baby never grew in stature, became dwarfs, because you did not look after the baby well. Jesus grew in stature, physical development. But I think the food is not alone. It's also medical. Am I right? Ensuring they have a medical cover. Not that the baby is sick, but because you don't have money, the baby doesn't go to hospital. Even after Ruto has a new medical scheme. What is it called? It's called UH, Universal Health. So you need to understand that if you are a parent and God wants the baby to grow in stature, He will expect you to deal with the medical issues as required. For baby to grow in stature requires a medical cover, so that whatever the need is, it can be resolved. You know, like when it's a new baby, there are all those what are they called? The thing, the initial ones. Every other day you have to take the child back to the clinic. What are those things called? Immunization. So when you skip the baby's immunization, you are not obedient to the owner of the child. Am I communicating? And that's really part of the parenting we are talking about. But so it is the food, it is the medical cover, but I think still on the physical is a question of exercise and rest. If you hold a baby and make it like a mummified thing, so it cannot stretch its legs, even at the age of 3, it will still not be walking. Am I right? It's the work of the mother to allow the baby to push the legs, put the head. When the baby is born, and unlike other animals, when a baby of a human being is born, they are totally useless. Am I right? They can't even lift the head. In fact, the way you know a new father is you give them a baby and the head goes over. Because the guy is not even aware that it will take 3 or more months for the baby to be able to lift the head. But you know, a cow, the calf is dropped and it wakes up to go and breastfeed. Am I right? Your baby is totally in your hands. God's child is totally dependent on how you look at it. So you must allow the baby to exercise. You must allow the baby to rest. That's why you make sure the baby sleep when they should. That's the first thing I see in this verse. Jesus grew in stature. The second thing, Jesus grew in wisdom. I call it intellectual development. It's the responsibility of the baby's father on behalf of God to ensure the baby is challenged intellectually. That's why when the baby starts talking, the baby goes, the mother doesn't say the same. The mother starts saying, but until you think, is this woman mad? Why are you talking to a baby? The baby can't understand. But just continue doing that, finally the baby starts speaking. That's why you call it the mother tongue. Even if it's a Luo baby, if it's brought up by the mother or who is a Kikuyu, the baby will speak Kikuyu. Because that language is part of the intellectual capacities you are actually developing. So similarly, if your child is not going to school and you are not willing to take them to school, you are not doing a good job on God's child. Because you have the example of Jesus himself. There was intellectual development. He knew how to read. When he got the age of 12 in the temple, he reads the scriptures, the scroll. Am I right? Yes. And I believe it is Joseph and Mary who helped the baby to know how to read. Because the baby was never, he was there, he was just a carpenter's son. Let me ask you, do you see that as your responsibility? To help your children to get intellectual development. That's why when our last born finished her first degree, I felt hallelujah, because I knew it was my responsibility to try to help them, unless they refuse, at least to get a first degree. I told them, second degree, we're jipatie. But the first one, I'm asking God to give me enough money to ensure nobody that goes out of school because I could not raise the money. Remember, you're talking about how do you bring up God's child on his behalf? And we take the example of his son on earth. He grew up in wisdom. And it will be your responsibility to help your child to grow intellectually. That may mean from the way you talk to them. Number 2, willingness to answer questions, which traditionally we are not good at. Traditionally, a child asks question, you say, that's not, why are you asking questions? In fact, children grow without knowing whether to ask or not, because they are being told when they ask a question, they are rude. Now, if you want a child to grow intellectually, you must encourage them to ask questions. And when you don't know the answer, say, I'll look for the answer. Don't say, you fool. No, it's you who is a fool. You're asking them, you're telling the wrong person. They are foolish. Because then they're asking questions because they don't know. It's your responsibility as a parent on behalf of God to allow them to ask questions. It's also your responsibility to take them to school. Like I've said, all the basic requirements of schooling must be there. That's one of the things we are failing a lot, is you are a Kikuyu, you are bringing a child up in Wangige full of Kikuyus, and your child cannot speak Kikuyu. Then they go and do medicine, become doctors. They are sent to Moranga. Their name is Wairimu. And then they have to call for an interpreter. And the patient will, you know, these children have become very proud. She is called Wairimu and she is refusing to talk to me. She is trying to ask for an interpreter. And she is Wairimu. Who is the cause of all that? Not the doctor, but the doctor's parent. Because you can speak 3 languages. You can speak Kikuyu, you can speak Swahili, you can speak English, but your child is daft. They cannot speak English and Swahili. And you ask yourself, surely Swahili and English doesn't even require you as parents. Because you pay a teacher to teach them Swahili and English, am I right? So why are you not teaching them your vernacular? And remember, their world will be as large as the number of languages they know. For a number of years, I used to work for Shell, and for a number of years, I was looking after 10 countries. 5 of them were French-speaking. I would be in Madagascar, Tanarivo, and I am there. I want to witness, and I just smiling. If they don't know English, I don't know French, we just look at that and they smile. And when I want to order something, I point. Now, when I'm in another country that knows English, I witness. Because you see, you are in office only for 8 hours. The other 16 hours, you can do ministry. Am I right? But because of lack of language, I just look like a fool. My friend, the number of languages your child knows determines their impact long term. And parents are the cause. I went to teach a course for Shell, must be 1990s. And we were 2 facilitators, one from Shell South Africa and me from Kenya. We were in West Africa, about 14 countries of that region. If you are at a certain seniority in Shell, you expected to know English. So we are teaching the course in English. But these people in their countries, more in the countries in West Africa, are French speaking. So they don't know English. So you speak something, you start suing them, looking at something at the table. I had to find out what are they looking at. I discovered it's a dictionary from English to French, because they can't understand. Then as soon as the break is time, all of them will gather together and you'll be left with the other facilitator. We have no idea whether they are saying these facilitators are useless, because you don't know their language. I came back and told my children, if you can learn French, you better learn it. If you can go to a school teaching French, opt for it. Because most countries in Africa speak French. Most. Okay, population-wise, the English are more popular because Nigeria has 200 million people. So all those French-speaking countries put together cannot equal Nigeria. But in terms of number of countries, most countries speak French. So if you want your child to be used of God in Africa, they must know French. We are talking about intellectual development. They can refuse to learn the language, but the parent should make it available. Am I right? And sometimes you get dividends. Another time our daughter was working in what is that country called? Senegal. And we went with the mother to visit. And we realized they are 99% in French. Even when she leaves us in her house, you can't even go to the shop because how do you ask for anything? And you don't know French. But because for her she had done at least Form 4 French, she could apply for a job bilingual. Are we together? Of course, you needed to learn more too because the country is totally French. But she went because she already knew French, which she learned as she was growing up in high school. Now you need, all I'm trying to say is, this is not your child. Don't say, but my mother never did. Now that's your mother. Your mother will answer to God about it. You answer about your children. Are we together? And what are the intellectual things you are helping the baby to grow so that we can say with Jesus, and the baby grew in wisdom, intellectual development. What are you doing? The verse goes on to say, and the baby grew in favor with the man. That is social development, interpersonal skills. It's the responsibility of a parent to teach a child interpersonal skills. The other day in a market, there was a baby, about 3 they are called toddlers. They go picking everybody's things. They go to your trolley and start picking things. And the mother is smiling. He's just being creative. He's a thief. Now, you need to this is nothing else. If you go, this is your mother's trolley, and you go to another and you pick. And the mother is saying, wow, my son is so creative. You are training your son to be, and it's not that you become a thief. He's already a thief. Because you never taught him interpersonal skills. Social development is recognizing boundaries. Are we together? Yeah. You cannot encourage your son. Every time he comes home, he picks his sister's towel and starts going to bed with it. When the sister comes, says, I'll give you later. And he is using the sisters without any apology. Do you know even when he works, he will be head up in committee because he never thought there were any boundaries. So use whatever you want. The baby Jesus was not like that. He grew in favor with the man. That means the brothers, and Jesus had brothers, he did not molest them. He knew how to deal with them. The uncles, the mother, the carpenter, he knew, he had learned how to deal with the people. What about your child? What are you teaching your child? Do you teach them he must have his own boundaries, but he must also respect other people's boundaries? He cannot be a big boy and he can run to the mother's bedroom anytime he wants. Because that means he does not understand the concept of nakedness. So you find him in the street naked. Say, but even in my house, we are allowed to look at our mother naked. Now you need to understand, you are the wrong preparing your baby badly. You must teach them to create boundaries. What does create mean? Don't allow people to pass a certain boundary. The girl must be taught that there is a way a man can touch you inappropriately. Put a boundary where you cannot allow another boy, another man, another girl to pass that boundary. And then please understand they also have boundaries. And you can't go beyond that boundaries. That's why you seek permission. Sister, my towel is dirty. May I use yours? And if your sister refuses, use your dirty one. Because you have been trained to respect other people's boundaries. You can't claim to be parenting the child well when the baby is not able to relate with people. And there are many children who don't know how to relate with people, isn't it? They never visit their grandmother, so when they see people old with these wrinkles, they think they are sick. Now, you need to understand, you are as a parent, you are parent, the God has given an opportunity to have grandparents, but you are not giving the child opportunity to understand old people, isn't it? Not understand you're also having wrinkles. He will just kill you because you taught him wrinkled people are useless. Whereas you should have used your mother's wrinkles to teach this boy wrinkles are normal. It's a question of time. He also will have them. The baby Jesus grew up in favor with men. And so you need to understand all these are responsibilities of parents. That's why Jesus, in summary, he was helped to grow. How? In favor with the man. And the little home is the little microcosm of a society, where with the father, the mother, they are taught how to do with older people. Sister and brother, they are taught how to deal with people of their age. Lastborn in the family, they are taught how to deal with younger people. Then the once in a while they get cousins. They are able to learn how to deal with people from another home. Then finally they go to school and they learn how to deal with total strangers. It's the responsibility of the parent to teach the child these things. The details how you do it is between you and God, but he has already shown you what are the requirements. The final one is, and the baby grew in favor with God, spiritual development. So you need to ask yourself, what have you done? Does your child, the other day,